And what I did is I discovered an ancient type of astrology, and it's called Hellenistic astrology. I felt like I was remembering it. This is astrology that came out of ancient Egypt, down to ancient Sumer Egypt, down to Babylonia and Mesopotamia, then through, the Greeks who shared knowledge with the Egyptians. And the reason this ancient astrology was recovered is because in 1990s and onward, a bunch of multi-literate astrologers, three Roberts indeed, or the three Roberts, began to decode these dusty old manuscripts out of the native Greek. One of the problems I find with reality, let alone astrology, is the passivity in which we engage reality. It's a co-creative, conscious universe. It invites participation. The archetype's trying to move through you, the most positive energy possible, to express the highest possibility in a range of possibilities, from shadow to mid-level to the highest expression. And if you're conscious of what's being asked of you, you can level it up. Like I call it now, coding your natal planets and coding your transiting or the movement of the sky to operate at the more co-creative, participatory level of reality. Because consciousness is what we are, and consciousness is what everything is made out of. So there's no separation between me and everything. There's only the illusion of separation.
Have you ever considered that your destiny might be encoded in the stars, just waiting for you to unlock its full potential? Well, imagine being able to consciously shape your life by aligning with the highest cosmic energies. In this episode, we delve into these captivating ideas with the brilliant astrologer Lori Lothian. With over 3 decades of expertise, Lori will guide us through the ancient art of Hellenistic astrology, revealing how you can decode your astrological chart and consciously code your life for the most beneficial outcomes. We'll explore Lori's groundbreaking concept of deep code astrology, where you engage with the planets to operate at their highest levels rather than succumbing to their shadow sides. This episode is a must listen for anyone ready to tap into the mystical power of astrology, embrace the rise of the feminine energy, and unlock the cosmic codes that can transform your life. It's now time to tune into this one very inspirational human being. Enjoy. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what side of the planet you are sitting on in this very moment. We have an amazing guest for you, and I'm super excited to the point where I've been stuttering since we've had this beautiful Lori Lothian. Welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, Catherine, it's such a pleasure to be here. And I so enjoyed our little conversation before we started. I'm also like super revved up for our talk today.
Yeah, same. So the way that we love to start the show is we always love to ask our guests, what inspired you to do what you do today?
Okay. So I do astrology today. But I've done many other psychic stuff, remote viewing, psychic readings, channeling the dead. But really, the astrology is my passion at this point in my life at 61 years old. And it's a funny story, and I love telling it because it really is a hoot. I used to live in New York City, and around the age of 29, which is your Saturn return, as a lot of you astrology buffs know, I was requested to do astrology books for Berkeley Publishing as a freelancer. I had a main job, but this was a freelance job in journalism, which was my trade. And I took it on. And the funny story about this is that basically the astrologer for Berkeley Publishing, like the Leo year ahead, the Sag year ahead, had died. And the widow didn't tell the publisher. And basically what she did was take the year before's content, mix it up and send it to them. And they realized that this is what had happened because the content was replicating the astrology of the year before. So this was like 1991. And so they pulled in a bunch of freelancers who were astrologically literate. At that point I was, but like I was real lightweight. I knew the basics. So because I was kind of thrown into the deep end of trying to write Leo, Sag, and Pisces, 1992 astrology, writing it in 1991, those were my books that I created. forecast books found in supermarkets, Berkeley Press. I had to figure out what astrology was. So I kind of joke, the universe threw me on my Saturn return into astrology, and I never looked back. I mean, I became an avid consumer of it, and I read so many books on it. I studied courses on it, but it really didn't become a passion until 1958, till I was, no, so in 2018, but I could have been 58 years old. And what I did is I discovered an ancient type of astrology, and it's called Hellenistic astrology. And it is so amazing because when I did that, I felt like I was remembering it. This is astrology that came out of ancient Egypt, down to ancient Sumer Egypt, down to Babylonia and Mesopotamia, then through, the Greeks who shared knowledge with the Egyptians. And the reason this ancient astrology was recovered is because in 1990s and onward, a bunch of multi-literate astrologers, three Roberts indeed, or the three Roberts, began to decode these dusty old manuscripts out of the native Greek, Latin, Coptic or whatever languages they were all in, and we recovered lost knowledge. But for me, I didn't learn it. I remembered it. And I'm like, this is like returning home. So when I do astrology today, I'm not using the modern psychological astrology as much as I'm using the very ancient recovered tradition of astrology. And so it is my passion because it, to me, gives people that way to time their best life, as I say in my channel, and use astrology as a navigational tool. And as we talked about, if it's going to rain, do you want to have that picnic in the rain? Or would you rather wait for a sunny day? So it helps you move in flow and ease and grace with your life.
Oh, I love that. Got goosebumps. Absolutely love that. So, before we got on the show, let's start with the basics. We were talking about how we use these archetypes when they're around us, and I'd love to get a bit of an understanding of how you use it for yourself. Do you look at your chart every day? Do you look back as to what's played out? Because obviously, we never really know what plays out until we kind of look back into our charts and go, "Oh, that's what exactly took place." I'd love to hear
Yeah.
that aspect of it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, first of all, you introduced a word, archetypes, and that is like a concept from Jung, right? Of there's sort of a pattern imprint, like archetype of the teacher, archetype of the sage, etc. And in astrology, the planets also share that. They are archetypes. So, for example, Jupiter could be the wise one, or the wisdom holder, or the one with a sort of bounteous, jovial nature, goodness. And he is, in fact, the most benefic or good planet in the sky. And every now and then we'll adopt the energy of Jupiter naturally in our lives. We'll be more beneficent, graceful, jovial, optimistic, and also more wealthy and prosperous, and lean towards wisdom and truth. These are all great Jupiter archetypal words. And then the sky also moves in such a way relative to our birth sky that you're going to be purposed by the archetype. The archetype will move through you and engage engage the theme of any given time of your life. Usually we call that a Time Lord tool, which is specific to ancient astrology and does not exist in modern astrology. And so we were talking earlier that you've been in a Time Lord age of the sun, and the sun for you is about what brings you vitality. In your chart, your sun is demanding vitality, performance, creativity, leaning into your inspiration, enthusiasm. That's what that sun wants for you. And at this particular age, until it ends on your next birthday, you are under the archetype of your sun. And so, and your sun's in a performing, creative, artistic, entrepreneurial place in your chart. And so you are living your solar energy in the last few months, right, since your last birthday. And it'll come to a close in March. So you're coming to a new energy soon. So I think that when we look at archetypes as a useful tool, I mean, I think we might want to think that as you say, we can grab an archetype and just use it. But like at certain points in our life, some archetypes are like offline. They're just not paying any attention to us. So I think if you want to use archetypes and astrology in one breath, it's to look at your Time Lord techniques. There are many, but one of them is simple. It's about your age relative to your natal chart, and going into the groove with that archetype. If someone says, oh, you're in the archetype of the messenger at this age, and you go, oh, well, I don't do messaging. Well, good luck. I mean, you'll find that someone's going to throw you on a podcast.
I love
Yeah,
that.
it's like,
So when you're talking about Time Lord, obviously every year our Time Lord changes.
In one Time Lord tool, yes, it's called your profection age, not perfection, like PRO. And that's a very interesting ancient tool that we recovered. And at every single age of your life on a repeating cycle of 12 years, because every 12 years you come back to the same place. 12 pie slices of your chart are 12 zodiacal signs, are 12 whole sign houses of meaning. And you can use that tool very effectively because everyone gets to be Jupiter archetypally as Jupiter time lords over your age twice in every 12 years. Venus twice in every 12 years. Do you want to be a diva? Do you want to engage beauty? Do you want to find what you truly desire? Do you want to move into a deeper alignment with your values? Venus. Do you want to be able to engage your love impulses in a new way? And what do you love? Venus asks us that. And twice in every 12 years, you get to be engaging your Venusian archetype. But then you want to be a ball busting Mars, you get that twice every 12 years as well. Or as for women to ball bust, for guys, I mean, chutzpah, generating a huge amount of masculinity and courage and determination and all of that. That's Mars energy. You get that every 2 years. So if someone wants to launch a new business and they're not in a good energy for that, something that's very passive, or something like Saturn is very stoic and slow moving and considering and cautious energy, and you want to launch some bold initiative in a Time Lord age at Saturn can be less effective, right? Individual charts are different. So your 2 Mars years of every 12, I mean, if you want to go for something bold, daring, and courageous, it'll naturally happen probably anyway, but you can be willing to believe you're capable and seize the day.
Is there, so first of all, I'm curious, how do you actually work out? Because you're saying it's based on age. I was just thinking,
Yes.
like you're talking about the theme. I was thinking, well, 2024, the theme is the number 8. So that's kind of
Yes.
the theme. And then obviously individually, that's going to affect everyone differently. So when you're talking about the Time Lord from an age, is
Mhm.
that kind of the theme of that year? And how do we work that out?
Yeah, so it's a theme of the age. And because when everybody is born at a certain hour in a certain latitude and longitude, you have what's called your ascendant or rising sign. And there's a degree, and there's the whole sign, the whole rising sign. And there's a degree of rising, one of 30 degrees or 29 degrees. And that rising sign is the start point of your life. Imagine a pie slice. I mean, just imagine a wheel with 12 pie slices. And the first pie slice represents 0 years, like being born, 0 degrees, I'm just born, to 12 months old. And then the second pie slice, your second house, which is the second sign over, represents the ages of 1. And then the third house, the third pie slice over, represents the age of 2. And you go around this wheel, and it's so simple. So I was offering to share like a free PDF download you can stick on your refrigerator with basically what age you're at and what meaning it has. Okay. So like 16. It's so funny that sweet 16 is such a big deal in the United States. But the age of 16 is the age of true love, falling in love, vitality, fun, romance. It's one of the meanings of that age because it connects to the archetypal or meanings of the fifth house. And so it's interesting because it returns over and over again on a 12-year cycle. 28 years old, 40 years old, 52 years old, right? You keep coming back, 64, to the fifth house age, and you will embody the meanings of the house, and you will embody the energy of the sign, because everybody's houses are different signs based on your rising sign as we move around the zodiac in the zodiacal order of Aries, Taurus, and Gemini and onward. So I'm an Aquarius rising, and you are a Scorpio rising, Catherine, right? So that means that our fifth house has different rulerships. So as a Scorpio rising, which you are so Scorpio rising, and how you want to dive deep under the surface and find out what's true. Like you're such a classic energy of the one who wants to scope out and investigate and understand and explore, Scorpio. But your fifth house, because you're Scorpio rising, is Pisces. So every time you are 16 and the ages of the fifth house, and 28 and 40, you carry the archetype of what Jupiter, the ruler of that house, is. Jupiter rules Pisces. You carry the archetype of the watery sign of Pisces, the mystic poets of the zodiac. So everyone's unique. What I just described is a more complex understanding in a very simple way. without even having to know your chart. You can say that certain ages demand certain areas of exploration and certain areas of expression. So every seventh house age, you're going to focus on a significant love relationship or your audience or clients. That seventh house ages occur on that regular cycle, again, 16, 18 years old, and then add another 12 years. I'm terrible at math, 30 years old, 42. You're engaging in those ages in primary significant relationships in your life. And that keeps repeating. So you go, oh, I'm one of those ages. I'm supposed to focus on my audience, my clients, my husband, my wife, my business partner.
And what if we don't? Because we were talking about this before. Like these are the influences that are available to us, and we were. So for those that are tuned in right now, we were talking about, can we activate these archetypes? We have access to all of them, but can we actually activate them? And when they choose us, let's say, because I love the way that you described that, what about if we're not consciously aware of them? What about if we resist them? Resist exactly what we should be stepping into? What does that look like?
Like most people's lives. Seriously, I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
Like we are living like an unexamined life for the masses, for me too, before I was examining my life. I mean, one of the problems I find with reality, let alone astrology, is the passivity in which we engage reality. It's a co-creative, conscious universe. It invites participation. And if you have a good archetype of Jupiter natally, or just because you've experienced good teachers hey, I love my kindergarten teacher and my high school teacher, my university teacher, and I love these archetypes of the teacher in my life. And this guy locks and loads you for a year of Jupiter to become more Jupiterian. You'll move with it. But hey, a lot of people have had bad teacher experiences, and all of a sudden they're in a teacher archetype year in which they're meant to engage in wisdom, truth, knowledge, expansion, all good Jupiter things, but archetypally it's still guide teacher, energy teacher. You may just short circuit yourself a little bit. The archetype's trying to move through you, the most positive energy possible, to express the highest possibility in a range of possibilities from shadow to mid-level to the highest expression. And if you're conscious of what's being asked of you, you can level it up. Like I call it now coding your natal planets and coding your transiting or the movement of the sky to operate at the more co-creative participatory level of reality. Because consciousness is what we are, and consciousness is what everything is made out of. So there's no separation between me and everything. There's only the illusion of separation.
So what you're saying, you obviously could see my eyes. I'm thinking, because I'm like, my brain's going like from side to side here. So you're basically saying that when these archetypes are part of our code, our current code, let's say, and we're not allowing them to fully express themselves, what actually shows up is the shadow aspects of that archetype.
Or the mid-range. So, if anyone's ever done the Enneagram, and that there are, especially with the Riso material, 3 levels of expression, like the bottom 3, the mid-range 3, and the highest top 3. I think that's a lot of the truth about planetary archetypes as well. They can go all the way from Neptune being an archetype of addiction and escapism and mental instability, insanity, all the way up to spiritual awakening, unity consciousness, transcendence. And in the middle, there's like, I'm creative and I use my imagination, and I'm an artist in music or filmmaking, and nothing wrong with that, but it's like a nice, healthy mid-range expression. So where every planet has the highest and lowest and middle range, my encouragement to my clients is that they lean towards the highest expression.
So for those that don't know astrology, that don't follow astrology, how would they navigate through the cosmic codes that are available to them?
Well, I mean, one of the things I say to everybody, if you don't know astrology, you don't need to know astrology. If you use some of the simple tools, like a very simple tool would be, you have a sun sign, right? And your sun sign is about an element. Everyone has a sun in a fire sign. So some people know the basics, and a water sign, an earth sign, the basics, air sign. And you can technically thrive and be more vital and successful anytime the sun is moving through any of those elements that's in alignment with your sun sign. So I'm an Aries sun. So every time the sun moves through Leo, which is our summer season, right? And we love the hot dog days of summer. And every time it moves through Sagittarius, which is as we approach winter, I'm going to thrive. So I just choose thrival periods. And of course, Aries season, right? March, April. So that's a simple code without having to go too deep. Another simple code is what I tried to explain with the profection ages, that every age has a meaning. If you Google, anyone listening, profection ages wheel, that's all you're going to need from this podcast. If you want to get my PDF, because Catherine can supply it, that gives you a little more depth of understanding, for example. But those tools don't require astrological sophistication to really jive with that. Like there's an ease with that tool that is across all modalities, really.
Beautiful. And of course, I'm going to unpack, because I did a little bit of research after reading a little note that you wrote about Saibari, which I'd love to really unpack a little bit more of the origin of Saibari and anything else that you can share with us.
Okay. So one of the things about me is that I'm also a channeler. So I channeled a couple of books, The Coming Age of Miracles, The Way of Miracles. I have been afraid to publish them because I'm talking directly to God. I just don't want the heaviness of that. But, and those were the one I channeled in 2019, predicted a pandemic, and it's timestamped that I did channel it then, not to prove myself, but it is true. And that's a free gift to what, by the way, just give it away, a PDF. It's really about co-creating with reality. But one of the things about being an astrologer, I find, is I felt limited lately in the last year or two, by what I was noticing with my audience and my clients, which was a tendency to want to allay fear, to look for hope, which is fine, but to also fall into this pattern of thinking that the sky is controlling you and that you're just this sort of destined pawn in the game of reality in an unproductive way, really. I mean, because otherwise, what are you doing on planet Earth if you're not going to co-create? In fact, when I was a psychic in my 30s telling people the future, just seeing the future, which I still can do, but don't deliver that service, I had the same crisis of faith. I was like, I'm just telling people what will happen. That doesn't serve them at all. So in the same vein of questioning the practice I'm engaged in as being ultimately useful to the soul, one night in November, just behind us, really recently, I woke up at 3 a.m. and there were these feminine sisterhood beings around me. And they didn't have bodies, like literally we're just in the room as like orbs of energy. I mean, I see ghosts and I talk to dead people, so this doesn't surprise me. But what surprised me was the intensity of the beauty of their essence. They are fully enlightened beings, whatever they are. They are Saibari is a sisterhood. It is not of this world or probably dimension. They are fully present, instantaneous, and without resistance to the divine mind, as they describe it. And I was just in tears. Like I was just crying, and it wasn't like sobbing aloud. It was just tears kept pouring down my eyes at 3 a.m. as I'm lying on my back in bed, and they're all around me. And they said, I'm going to cry. They said, we wish you to be a servant of the sisterhood. Will you accept? And I said, yes, not even knowing what I meant. Like I could not say no to whatever this energy was. And I said, am I supposed to channel you? Because I channel books. They go, no, we're here. We're healers, and we're here for you. We're for you. You're for us. So you're not going to get a Saibari book that I know of. And the point of the whole thing is that they wanted me to redefine astrology, to share with the world the ability to code reality, because in essence, like we're like, let's use a metaphor of whales, right? We're whales. We're in consciousness. Human beings are whales of consciousness. And often we forget that we're so vast, we're so spacious, we're so big, and we're so free. And then we incarnated or something into this reality. And they describe this reality as like amber. You know how flies get stuck in amber and it becomes, it's a sap of a tree, but then it becomes petrified amber, like it's hard and it's stuck. They're stuck there. That we're in a reality that's somehow like, in their view, like amber, like it to them, it's a metaphor. And that but we think we're encased in the amber and we're like a whale with the tip of a flipper in the amber. Our true massive spacious consciousness is not stuck in this little bit of amber, just a teeny bit of us. And that we can, as the whale essence of consciousness, individually code the flipper stuck part for the highest expression. And we're not really stuck. This is a metaphor, right? It's just maybe you say it's thick and dense and syrupy here. All right. And so to code our lives differently is interesting. I'm going to give you an example, though it's outside of astrology, but I'll give you an example because they're saying code everything, not just the planets in your chart. Like, my Jupiter is really healthy in my chart. So if I code him to do better, he's going to do really great because he's in a good, strong sign, Pisces, he's in a good position. He's in a good, he's got a beautiful star about alchemical wisdom and knowledge attached to him. So if I code my Jupiter, like Jupiter, I'm giving you an instruction. I'm asking you to go to your highest expression. He's already highly expressed. I can't imagine what that means, but I can code a difficult planet that's in a difficult sign for itself, that's in a difficult house. Some houses are more difficult, like the 6th house, the 8th house, the 12th house. I can code that planet to operate better. But I had another experience where they just simply code that medication. I was going to take a medication for a health challenge, and instead they just code that pill that's a vitamin, type of vitamin, and just hold it and say, do the same thing. Do the same thing that the medication would do if you took it, and it worked. And that's right out of Lynn McTaggart's The Field, that consciousness is primary, right? And that we can indeed influence reality. So I'm talking about coding. They want me to tell people how to code astrology for their own skies in a different way to choose the highest expression of the archetype. But you can use it in a practical way to transfer the power of an antibiotic, in essence, into what was a pill, into a vitamin pill. And it did indeed work. So.
Wow, I've got goosebumps over goosebumps. That's a God bumps, whatever you would like to call them. That is amazing. So obviously, I have questions. We've had Lynn on the show; she's amazing. So when you're talking about coding, so I get from a physical aspect, you're coding a vitamin tablet to do. I'm not going to try that, by the way. A vitamin tablet to do exactly what a medicine would do. How do you do that with your chart, though? So, for example, if you were to look at your chart and you were saying like one specific planet is probably not at its highest potential, is sitting in a particular house, how do you do that? Like, how do you go Mars?
Yeah. So that's a great question because it's so new to me as well. So I'm playing with my own chart, experimenter on myself, like, before I tell anyone else to try this thing in case it backfires on me. So for me at this point in this juncture where I'm at with this new idea and this new philosophy and this new power, hopefully, is I'm looking at my challenging planets and I'm asking them, I'm giving them an instruction. Coding is nothing more than an instruction. I'm giving them an instruction, right? From I'm consciousness, I'm primary, it's consciousness, it's one with me. I'm just saying, I'd like you to work in this way. Now, not specifically, like I don't want to say, Mars what to do. I want to tell Mars to be in his highest expression. Bad Mars, anger, conflict, aggression, cutting off, severing. Sometimes severing is good. Get rid of the gangrene limb. So you want Mars to be able to sever what's needed. So you don't tell him not to cut because he could cut off something and some person from your life that's horrible for you. So cutting's fine, but I will ask him to do only good cutting. I'm not going to use Mars in the negative way, which is to be reactive, to have an amygdala hijack, to become a fight and flight response in which I make decisions based on panic. I want Mars to be the noble warrior. I want him to be the good cutter, right? The surgeon who knows that limb is going to kill you if we don't take it off because it's toxic. It's got gangrene on it. You'll be better off without it. So the instruction is simply for the planet to use its highest level of archetypal expression. but I'm just playing with it myself, right? It's just so new in November. And when I'm going to teach a class later in the fall of this year called Deep Code Astrology, which I'm bringing people into this experiment with me.
I'm there, right there with you, Laurie, and I'm sure anyone listening to this show will be as well. That sounds fascinating. I've never heard of that, but I mean that's what Aquarius, us stepping into the whole age of Aquarius, is doing is opening up the and expanding our consciousness. And obviously, you're having all these beautiful downloads that you're able to share with us, and so that we can experience them as well.
Yes, Pluto in Aquarius is a part of that. It's no doubt about it. And it's because it's also accompanied by other planetary motions that are all uniquely aligned with this Pluto and Aquarius story. And so it's going to open up corridors for magic and miracles. And like, I don't want to sound like one of those new age people because I'm actually really practical. You know, what I mean, I'm really not the sort of the whole ascension wave person. I'm not that. But if you look at the planetary alignments and you look at what's happening today, more people are looking at energy medicine. And you had a great guest talking about frequency and he has relaxation furniture. And I'm like, there's a new scientific discovery. Science discovered the power of frequency to heal. It's a new science discovery, no longer new age vibrational healing. It's now science. So we're moving away from looking at, I think, reality in a mechanical, materialistic, mechanistic way. I mean, we got stuck with that kind of archetype in the time of Descartes, and we're moving back and towards a time in which we're re-engaging in magic. You know, it is Thomas's More expression that the soul has an unrelenting, maybe unforgiving need for regular excursions into enchantment. It needs it like the mind needs thought and the body needs food. And I'm like, we've lost the enchantment with life. You know, indigenous cultures still have a mystical enchantment and a relationship with that magic of reality that the Western world has long ago lost. And I do feel that this is a time when that is returning to the collective, but it's not ungrounded, right? It's useful. Science usually reveals what the mystics have always said is true. They're usually behind. Science is behind the mystics, you know?
100%. And even you're talking about vibrational frequency. I mean, that goes back, Tesla and beyond that. When you're talking, I mean, there's lots of machines now. I think it's called the Spooky Tube. Now, they're not part of they're not part of the show, but they do amazing work with vibrational frequency, healing people with just DNA. So hair or nail, absolutely amazing. Some of the results that I've seen, blows your mind, absolutely blows your mind. So, and it's not
Yes.
new.
Yeah, it's not, you know, with Lynn McTaggart's book, The Field, she was a pioneer where we're all headed. You know, there's a case of like taking a homeopathic remedy, not by taking even the homeopathic dose, but sticking the remedy on a piece of paper in your pocket and having it work just as well. And I think when I talk deep code astrology, I'm just following in Lynn's steps around the Saibari you're saying. It's the same with your astrological sky. You know, in India, they have what they call remedies. If you have a difficult planetary placement, you can do remedies with gemstones and mantras to rehab your planet, to fix it, to make it work better for you. It's a similar idea. Deep code astrology or the Saibari's idea or information or wisdom that they're imparting to me is that you can adjust by instructing or coding your planets. You said something recently on your last, I think, December 23rd podcast about your beliefs, right? And how important they are. And I noticed that it is an attempt by all of us to recode our belief structures, right? That's always been what the whole secret thing is about, and choosing language that supports our deeper self belief. But also, I'm going to speak against the grain here. I found that you create your own reality and manifestation, and the law of attraction seems to not work for many people, despite the fact that there's a good idea that it could work. And I'm still pondering that, but I do think it's because of a narcissism that is in the collective, that we are masters of our ship, that we create the reality solely as an individual entity. And I don't find that is true for me. I feel that I create like a magical miracle worker when I'm in a state of surrendered flow to the divine. And most people won't engage the surrendered flow because we're willfully wanting what we want no matter what.
I love that. I love that. I got goosebumps again. I was just having this conversation yesterday.
Absolutely. From a manifestation point of view, we are source, we are love, we are light, we are truth. And so when we are stepping out of who we are, which is life, truth, whatever that may be, light, love, and truth, we're absolutely not fully expressing our God self, right? So, and a lot of the times, I would say 90% of the times, we are externally focused. And so I always say that um, when things are not working for you in your environment, whether it's work, relationships, love, whatever that may be, that is a reflection of your internal world. And so quite often people are trying to manifest from their external world and wonder why it's not working. Because the magic and the light is from within. You need to be within yourself to believe yourself, to back yourself, to love yourself, to stand in your truth, to be able to manifest from your core. So you need
Yes.
to have there needs to be an alignment, an integration of thought and feelings, thought and emotions for you to, because if you believe you are not worthy, and I'm speaking from experience, if you believe that you are not worthy of love, or if you believe that I can't trust certain aspects of your life, guess what? Your life is going to say, well, external, so your wish is granted, right? When we're aligned with source and with the universe, it's beautiful what we can manifest.
Yeah, and I think that, there's a lot of like little cliches, go within or go without, or what you dwell upon grows, or what you resist persists. And these are true mechanisms of reality. But also, your Aboriginal Australian people, your Indigenous peoples have the concept of the dream time. And that is that by the time you see it here, like knock on my, like this hair, this face, this computer, this microphone, you already dreamed it into being. Like you got to change reality at a deeper level from the dream time. You know what I mean? In alignment with the song lines, which I know nothing about, but I just know enough to say those words. And, in essence, it's like astrology is a similar possibility. It's being used at the mid-level for most people. It's just like, it's going to rain, bring an umbrella, and then, but you assume rain is happening and you'll make an adjustment around it. But maybe you can code instead of for rain, like something new. Maybe what could come as rain, like physically, I'm making a metaphor because there's going to be a Neptune transit, could show as another way that watery elements show up, like enlightenment. Neptune is an enlightenment planet. So I think about the deep code astrology rather than like, you don't have to know astrology to do what I'm trying to teach people to do, because the planet knows what it is itself. It knows what it's about. You're just asking it, coding it, giving it permission to operate at the highest expression rather than the default middle range, let alone the shadow range, right? Which is not where anyone wants to be. If you prefer to have a happy life in the dream, as A Course in Miracles would say, you know what I mean? If you want to be like having a good dream experience in this matrix that we're in, or whatever it is, you want to at least ask those energies in your natal chart. And as they move through our current heavens, mirroring our reality, not causing it, to also be operating there. You touched on one more thing when we talked before the show, and I want to encourage people to also just relax a lot about their lives, because I discovered the joy of the minor asteroids about 2 years ago from a fellow at a astrology conference 3 years ago, Alex Astrology. Asteroid astrology. What a beautiful teacher he is. And I fell into the thrall of the rabbit hole of the minor asteroids. And there are like 24,000 named asteroids in an asteroid belt, right, between Mars and Jupiter, that is very likely a smashed planet. Okay. And we've named them astronomically. And there's like names of friends and family, and you're going to have names of places and names of divinities and gods. And I find that I allowed myself to deepen my relaxation about life when I started seeing the asteroids in my chart and in my client's chart show me that I have a plan here. Like I coded my life. I coded the seeds of this incarnation. No one else did it. And like the fun part of it is like I have a client who works with Ken Wilber, close, close, close. And Ken Wilber's famous. And the asteroid Wilbur is on his midheaven, which represents your career and purpose. A client who channels David Bowie, and the asteroid David Bowie is on her midheaven, which is her purpose. Two clients who are sommeliers, and the asteroids for wine, Bacchus and Dionysius, are on their midheavens. They didn't grow up at 5 years old going, I'm going to channel David Bowie, I'm going to work with Ken Wilber, and I'm going to be a sommelier. But that place was already coded for them. They would discover later, in hindsight, this is true. But our lives are like that. Our lives are meant to be relaxed into, you know what I mean? Like your relaxation furniture guy. Can we just relax into it a bit here?
So there's what I'm hearing is that there's a kind of a twofold here. One, we can relax into what is because I know that you said a little bit more about my chart. Like, what's on my midheaven again? That you're the
Yes. Yes, Catherine. She has the asteroid Hermes, the messenger, in a flow called a perfect flow to her north node in the house of the audience and the south node in the house of her being, which, by the way, can bring you enlightenment in this life, that south node in the house of your Scorpio identity. And that perfect flow of a trine and a sextile, which is called a wedge, is Hermes, the asteroid of the messenger of the gods, in your third house of podcasting, speaking, social media, journalism, news information, news outlets, the thing you're doing. You were always going to be a very hermetic person in this world. Hermes is also the deep mysteries of life, the occult wonders, the paranormal, the mystery, the hidden knowledge. And you're here to dispense that in third house means, which is third house is your ability to communicate, to write, and to be in a like an online platform. And you also have a beautiful, beautiful star in your chart, Mimosa, on your ascendant and on your moon. And your mom is a very important person in your life, by the way. And that star Mimosa is someone who grounds the sacred in the everyday, has a reforming zeal to change the world, and has the gift of the gap. You will always be able to have reforming zeal, ground the sacred in the everyday, and have the gift of the gap. You coded for that as an incarnational strategy.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
so that's natural. But then we also have the ability to code what's probably at its lowest expression to be able to function at a higher expression by us collaborating with that particular planet. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And in other ways of just expressing, collaborating, or coding, or instructing the planet is to have a theurgic relationship with the planet. Theurgy is to have a connection to a divine essence of something, like to communicate with, Shiva and have a conversation or something. So you are basically I'm asking reality to participate with me by forming a relational dialogue with the planet in my natal chart. And, as I said, if you've got good planets already, you can just make them better. And if you've got difficult planetary placements, you can move them out of the shadow at the very least into the mid-range expression. But who knows? Sky's the limit, right? Maybe it can go all the way. So, if someone has Mars in Libra, they're always wanting to keep the peace, right? It's an unfortunate placement. It's at your own expense. You will keep the peace. You will avoid conflict. You may engage in passive aggressive actions in order to avoid direct conflict. Yet Mars is capable of being very powerful in Libra. He can also be the one who does bring peace, you know what I mean? Through a kind of conflict that's useful. Like you can be with a Mars in Libra, aggressive in a way that brings ultimately balance, harmony, and peace to a situation. But your Mars is in a difficult place. He doesn't like the UN peacekeeping treaty tent. He's the warrior, right? Or Mars in Taurus is like he's in the harem tent, or he's in the nail salon and getting his nails done with the women. He's not comfortable there. There's a way to ask him to work better in those placements. Those are places of his natural discomfort.
So when you're saying that we can ask Mars or whatever planet to work at its highest expression, how does one do that? Like I know you talked about connecting with it and asking to to work at its high expression, but isn't that, because I'm thinking about the actual energy of a planet, it's quite big. I mean, we're all one. I get that. We're all you know, collectively we're all one, including everything, the solar system, everything. But when you're talking about this strong archetype, let's say, even if it's Jupiter, really big, strong archetype, and but then it's, you're asking it to work at its highest expression. And let's say what you were talking about before, like if they're at they don't like to be in that certain house or in that certain sign, how do you actually work with that resistance of that archetype that's saying, no, I just don't like it here though. I just don't like to sit around and try to make peace when I'm a warrior. I'm not at my highest expression.
Well, yeah, and but you could be a peace warrior too, right? See what I'm saying? So, bottom line, like war protests. There's a good Mars and Libra. I protest a war. I've got my sign up. Well, let's use your chart as an example. If I can bring up one of your difficult planets publicly, would you be okay with that?
Of course, go for it.
Okay, so you said Jupiter just as I was looking at your Jupiter, so that's why I thought it would be like synchronistically okay. You know, your Jupiter is in Gemini, and Gemini is not a comfortable place for Jupiter. And now, just so you know, your Jupiter is also really, really powerfully placed close to a wealth star, so he's got some good things going for him. But he happens to be in a sign that's difficult and a house that's difficult, the eighth house, which is somewhat difficult. And he's in a sign, Gemini, that is his discomfort home because it belongs to Mercury. And Mercury is about the details. Mercury is about the fine print. Mercury is about succinct. Mercury is about a whole bunch of things that Jupiter doesn't do very well. Jupiter is like, you know, you get a meme, go big or go home. That's Jupiter. And then Mercury is like, here's the 5 steps, you know? So Jupiter just gives you the big ideas and then Mercury fills in the blanks. And so Jupiter is trying to be mercurial, which is not good for him. He's just like, gosh, these details are driving me nuts. You know, I need a staff. So when you have your Jupiter in Gemini, you will find that that's not where you really want to thrive. So for example, your eighth house, I'm going to tell you how to code it. But your eighth house can be about money. It can be your counting, your bookkeeping, your stock investments, your money with your marriage or shared resource with a partner, settlements and divorce and stuff like that. And Jupiter has no attention for detail, doesn't want to do the detailed work. He doesn't care about it. Plus he's in the eighth house and his happy place is your whole sign second house, which is Sag. And that's where he wants to play. He wants to make you an amazingly prosperous woman who's super capable of very big earnings in her life. That's one of the codes that he would like to do because he can he's exiled from your second house. He's in exile in your eighth house. That's what we call it. His detriment is an exile, but it doesn't mean he can't level up. So I specifically would teach you in my class that I haven't created because this is new to me too, to ask Jupiter if it's possible that he could play on a day pass to your second house of earnings and possessions and wealth that you earn directly and have a blast there as an upgrade, as a new code. And I would ask him if he would stop getting a headache over the details and maybe outsource that to somebody else. And I just ask him how he thinks he could express more deeply and powerfully in the eighth house. I mean, the eighth house has so many meanings because it is the house of the occult mystery and the things that are hidden that are deeply, deeply spiritual. So maybe he'd say, yeah, I'd love to really work as, you know, developing Catherine's ability to teach this kind of material, or he teaches, right? Or to find occult teachers that are her right teachers. So when he's in default mode, middle range, not like really screwed up, because he's pretty healthy in your chart, because he's got a nice trine to Venus, but otherwise, where you could stumble with him is in your investments, in money shared with a spouse or partner, in finances that have to do with tax matters. He's just not capable of delivering the goods. He does give you prosperity, but he gives it through other people. Like you might become dependent on spousal wealth, or unfortunately live off an inheritance instead of make your own money. I'm not saying you did these things. I don't know your life well enough, but you could code him to pretend he has a day pass or a month pass or a year pass from his exile in your eighth house to play in his home kingdom of Sag, your second house, and go crazy in helping you prosper. So if you understand why he's in detriment, you can give him permission to maybe move a little bit towards a more easy expression. And again, I'm an empiricist. I experiment. I try it. Does it work? If it doesn't work, I don't do it. And so this is an idea, and I have to be honest, it was given to me in November, and the Saibari talk to me now on the daily, and like anytime I take a meditation break. But that is one of the major things that they're trying to get me to try. So like everyone out there listening who's an astrologer, and you know what I'm talking about, experiment with your chart, right? Don't like see if what I'm suggesting works. And if you're not an astrologer, again, um, there are other tools you can use, like the perfection ages or something, just to use the navigational tool of astrology.
I'm definitely going to try. And I'm smiling because when you were speaking, Enneagram, I'm a number 7, my stretch is a number 1, and my release is a number 5. And I'm very much a visionary, global in my approach. And so to get down to specific and detail drives me nuts. I can do it, but it's not a natural, innate instinct in me.
Oh, absolutely. I get it. I'm a 7 as well. So there
Oh,
you
there you
go.
go. There you go. So I know I'm conscious of time, but I did want to ask one question around Saibari. When you're talking about sisterhood or embodies the sisterhood, because I hear quite often the rise of the women or the rise of the woman as we are stepping into the age of Aquarius. Is there any link to that, or what are your thoughts?
Oh, I love that. Well, funny enough, like 8 years ago, I bought wisewomanrising.com, and I'm still clutching onto it for one day I might use that website, because I do think that women or the feminine energy, because men have a feminine side as well, is the receptive, inclusive, non-competitive, collaborative element of reality, and it's needed. It's the yin, right? And bottom line is that Pluto and Aquarius won't bring in the feminine per se, but something else is bringing in the feminine, and that return to a divine balance between the masculine and feminine imperative. And that is that Venus, the goddess of the feminine energy herself, which is, by the way, such an important planet for you on your IC in the fourth house. You have a strong need to engage the feminine, is that Venus last star pointed or met with the sun in a regular series of conjunctions that lasts a bit more than 100 years. She last did that in late 1800s. I think it was 1878 or 9. And since the late 1800s into let's go late 1700s to late 1800s, we had an infusion of the divine feminine Venus in Libra, her home sign. And that corresponded with this huge outpouring of energy around dyes, arts, textiles, fashion, feminine energy, the beginning of mystical things like the tapping and the wrapping of the sisters in the White House, the spiritualism movement, the Fox sisters. So Venus brought back a lot of mysticism, feminine mystics, showing up in our world. And she's been gone. She's been gone since like the late 1800s. Now she just returned, yay, and star pointed into Western tropical zodiac Libra. Okay, that's where it happened at 29 degrees in October of 2022. And basically for the next 100 plus years, we are getting a reimmersion in that feminine energy. And with Pluto in Aquarius trining her, which was something that did not occur in the 1800s, it's power feminine power, divine balance and harmony for the collective, the Aquarian societal energies. So we're just tiptoeing into these new waters in October of 22, and we'll be mostly engaging there for the next 100 years. So that's where that Saibari probably popped in, because we're like, we're on.
I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. And I'm 100%, I could relate to everything you were just saying then. Absolutely. It's one of those things that I've been facilitating a women in leadership program for such a long time. As you know, we were talking about corporation. That's where I've been in for the last 30 years. But interestingly enough, I'm looking at pulling it out of corporate and having women from, doesn't matter where from, to come and connect, because there's something about networking with one another, connecting and sharing our stories with one another. I think there's.
Oh, I got the chills all the way up my head, like you were saying. For me, that is so resonant, because one of my clients who I admire, and I consider her friend, colleague energetically, kind of reached out to me this morning about a collaboration, and it set my mind in motion before our conversation about, how when women team up together, come from that feminine energy. It's always win-win with women. It doesn't go competitive unless a woman has been, leaning in like Sheryl Sandberg a little bit too hard to the masculine boardroom. Ultimately, women strive for collective, cooperative, collaborative win-wins.
I agree 100%. I've actually written a blog about that. So I'm right there. I think we're going to have to get you back on the show because I'm conscious of your time.
Oh,
And
yes. Maybe I need to get you on my show. I'll get you on my channel and we'll have a chat for my people to meet you. I think that would be fun too. Yeah, my time is fine. I opened and ended us today, but I know the podcast has a limit on it. Was there something else we had pre talked about that we would talk about? I think that's it. It was Saibari. It was perfection ages and the simplicity of an age with a meaning, which everyone should just Google perfection age wheel, and you don't even need to like seek me out. I think that we covered it. Yeah.
oh, I highly recommend everyone to seek Lori out. She's amazing. I follow Lori, and I was saying to Lori before she came on the show that I absolutely love her authenticity, her genuine, and you know yourself. You're an amazing astrologist, really are. So thank you. So the way that we wrap up the show, we always love to ask our guests to leave 3 shiny golden nuggets for our listeners, viewers, and guests that have joined us today. What would be those 3 shiny gold nuggets, Laurie?
I love it because I didn't prepare for that. So I thought I'd just channel something. Well, I mean, the first thing I'm going to say, because it's my own hardest lesson, okay? Stop resisting reality. Just stop. Just stop. I mean, it sounds like should be easy, but you'll amaze how hard it is. When I say stop resisting reality, it's like something doesn't go your way, and the first thing is it's a wrong or it's a problem. But as I heard you say on one of your podcasts, stop. Maybe the thing that went wrong is right. And maybe there's some deep lesson for me here. Maybe I was stepping off a path into the wilderness where there was briars and it wasn't my true path anyway. So I always have learned, like my first feisty Aries response is fight back, figure it out, fix the problem. And now I'm long time to get here, 61 years old. Hey, maybe there's nothing wrong. Something good is always trying to happen. And so I'm not trying to not resist reality as it unfolds and rather surrender, soften, relax, trust. Okay, 1. So my lesson, I hope you guys can try out, is working for me in terms of cortisol anyway. Nugget number 2. It's kind of to remember that you made the code for your life. And even if you don't believe it yet, just entertain the possibility. Have a walking belief, put it on your refrigerator. I coded my life. And that means the dark places, the hard places. That means the beautiful places and the amazing places. There is a life here that you made a decision to put into motion for yourself. And yourself isn't Lori, when it is not the individual body mind complex. It's a big whale. And a little flipper is playing the role of Catherine, Plano, and Lori, right? You're so much bigger than this story that you're now in. But remember, you are the screenwriter, the coder, the arranger of your life story. And it'll take you out of victim mind, because if you made the story for yourself, how can you complain about it? Right? So that's what I'm doing in my world. So these are my hacks. And number 3, oh, it's so hard. There's so many things that have been useful for me that I rely on, or I'm learning to rely on. I'm going to say don't do it alone. And I think a lot of people, we're fiercely independent individuals, especially as women. We are in non-communal families anymore. We have lost the large family for the nuclear family. And maybe this is more for women. It is easy to do it alone because women have learned to be extremely capable, independent, and responsible in our post-World War II era, as women came into the workforce en masse, for example, in the Western world. But it is something to do with this idea that alone is somehow powerful and together can be compromising or something. And it's subtle in our collective field. So as a woman speaking to women listening today, sorry, guys, try not to do it alone. Reach out for your friend, for a shoulder to lean on. Reach out for a ally or collaborator. Be willing to share another woman's talent with the world, because it only benefits all of us. These are feelings that I've been learning to come to terms with, because I have so many planets in Aries, actually, that being a soloist and independent has been a default, and it hasn't always served me.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Laurie. And you know what? I think we all experience that too. Like I think about, I've been looking into ancestral wounds and ancestral stuff, and it's really interesting how we naturally think that we must be able to do it on our own. There's this innate little voice that says, you don't need anyone. You can do this. just go and do it, that kind of thing. And it's like, I'm big on collaboration. I always talk about collaboration. And I also really resonated with non-resistance. For those that listen to the show, I practice non-resistance, non-attachment, and non-judgment. Easier said than done. I'm still practicing, and I've been practicing this for over 18 months, but I'm still learning. It's
Oh,
amazing how often we resist.
yes, we do resist. And when you say non-judgment, I've noticed myself struggling with that thing with world events have been challenging me lately. Like I'm judging world events as we record in January of 2024. And only this morning did I have a breakthrough around judgment on that. And where it led me immediately after I dropped the judgment was compassion.
Oh, it's gorgeous. See, I can't watch the news, not just purely because I'm way too sensitive, but from a non-judgment, I think also that I've learned that there's times I'll place a judgment, and what it does, it really blinds me from truly seeing what's in front of me. So I love the fact that that's hard to do. So I love the fact that you actually were able to do that and see the compassion, allow the compassion to express itself rather than
Yeah,
stuck in the
it was
judgment.
just a feeling all of a sudden it just welled up in me and I had compassion for the one whom I'd been judging in a global sphere. So it's not a personal thing, but it was really consuming me. I think judgment is the energy of a wall, and it's not see-through. You know what I mean? So as soon as you're in a judgment mode, you put a wall up between you and that which you're judging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always go, and something we teach at the academy, when you are placing judgment, then that just is actually, once again, it's the law of correspondence. What you are doing external, you're actually doing to yourself. So what
Hmm.
aspect of you are judging, or what aspect of you that you are judging and not making peace with or integrating with?
Oh, absolutely. That's such a great point. Yeah, that's basic, Carl Jung and shadow work. The thing that we are angry about, or judgmental of, and, suspicious of in the world is an aspect of ourself that we haven't really integrated.
Yeah, 100%. Laurie,
Yeah.
I love you and I love what you do, and definitely
Oh,
going to get you on the show because everything that you were saying, I'm like just blown away. I want to spend more time with you, and I know our viewers and listeners will too. So thank you so much for coming on the show, for your time, your energy, and sharing your wealth of wisdom. You're absolutely phenomenal. That's probably the best. I can't even think of a word that's even better than that, but you're amazing.
well, I'm so glad to be here. As I said, as soon as I got asked to come on, I went to your podcast and it was yes with exclamation marks after I listened to a couple of your episodes. And I'm like, this woman is my kind of woman.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, my dear. Blessings to you and your audience.